Okay, welcome back. So today we're going to make it so that you can have your goals not just be made of pieces, but also of these obstacle pieces that we made. And then when you meet your goal, a little you win panel comes in. Right now, the you win panel is just going to make it so that you can, reload the current scene, but we'll add to it from there. So let's get started. Diving right in here, I have a version of the game board that I made that has 22 ice pieces on it, and it has 4 empty spaces. This also has no sinker items on the board. So what I've done is I've gone through and just on my grid here, I set the sinkers in scene to be off, max sinkers to 0. I put my current move count at 30. And then I filled in my empty spaces with 4 of them. So there's 4 indices here in this array. And then in my ice spaces, I have 22 parts of this array. And I just filled them out manually. I used a piece of graph paper just to see what it would look like, and I think it looks okay. So what I'm going to do here is, right now if I hit play, I'm going to see this with just one goal, but that's not the goal I want. I want the goal to instead be these ice pieces here. Now you could make a second goal if you wanted to, ice pieces and a certain number of, whatever color you wanted. But in this case, I'm going to have it just be those 22 ice spaces in 30 moves. So to do that, I'm going to use most of what we've already created. I'm just going to tweak a few small things. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my goal. I'm going to set my goal string instead of blue to be ice, ICE, and I'm going to set my goal texture to be from the obstacles. I'm just going to grab the ice texture and pull that right in. So now if I hit play, I'll have changed it so that my goal texture is the ice. I also need to change the number needed to be 22 because that's how many are in the scene, and all of that will update just fine. Now, it's a little bit off center. Okay, I need to tweak that a bit, I guess, but it'll be fine for today. So the main thing that I want to do is I want this to actually register when there are pieces that, or when one of these ice pieces gets destroyed. So to do that, I'm going to be using pretty much the exact same logic that we've already been creating in the grid. In the grid last time we created a signal that sends out check goal to 2 places. It sends it to the goal holder so that it knows if the goal has been met or not, and it also sends it to the UI to update the UI. Now I'm going to go into my ice holder here, and I would have to do this for the lock, the concrete, and the slime as well. But in my ice holder, I'm going to make a new signal, and this is going to be signal, we'll call this break ice, why not? And then I also want to, this needs to know what its value is, because when we're checking our goal values here, on the goal itself we have this goal string, this value, and we're going to need to change that. So on top of my break ice signal, I'm going to make an export of type string, and I'll call this value. How about just make it nice and simple? And I'm going to comment my code here so that everything seems to be how it's supposed to be. I'm going to call this goal signal stuff. Then when we break a piece here, so in our on-grid damage ice, we check to make sure that there's ice. We check to see if there's something in that position, and if there is something in that position, we give it damage, and then if its health is less than or equal to 0, we queue free and set that space to null. I'm going to add emit signal, and the signal I want to emit is break ice, and I want to pass in another value, which is the value. Now I can use this signal to hook up to my goal holder and my UI so that they're both receiving a signal, and for the most part they're going to see that signal as the same signal that you would get if you were to break just a regular piece, like one piece towards the 5 that are required or whatever. So I'm going to go to my ice holder here. I'm going to go to node, grab that break ice signal. I'm going to connect it to two places. The first place I'm going to connect it is top UI, and I'll come back to that in a second. And the second place I'm going to connect it is goal holder, and I'll come back to that in a second too. So let's start with the top UI here. This is what we're going to mess around with first. So we already have some functionality in here that checks everything that's in the goal container. So update value goal type. So we're going to make sure that this has an argument in here, goal type. And we're just going to do the exact same thing. So we're going to copy this and we're going to paste it right there. Make sure that's not indented one more it needs to be. All right, cool. So this is going to go through the goal container, which is just the UI of it. It's not the actual logic behind the goal, and check to make sure that everything is how it should be. So let's hit play here. All right, so I got 0 out of 22. Let's make a match here. Okay, cool. So that didn't work because I forgot to do something. I forgot to set my ice holder to have a value of ice. And again, you have to be careful about your string here. Somebody had commented in the previous video that they forced the string to be all lowercase so that there weren't any weird capitalization issues. And that's not a bad idea. I just have a tendency to name variables with lowercase in Godot. But okay, so I'm going to save this again. Let's try now. It should update, but maybe it won't. All right, so there we go. We got 1. There's 2, and so on. But nothing's going to happen once we reach our goal. In fact, at this point, it won't even tell us that the goal was met, like it will with one of the other pieces. So what we have to do instead is we need to go through and fix the other half of that. And the other half of that was when we made sure that, sorry, this is already kind of fun to play. The other half of that is when we went through the goal holder and checked to see what goals were met. So going back to my goal holder here, I already have the main idea behind what I need to do. So the grid was passing this on grid check goal type. So we're going to send goal type as well. And then we're going to check goals, goal type, but we're going to have to do some other changes as well. And those other changes here are going to be for us to know whether or not we've met all of our current goals. So I'm going to go to my goal script and I'm going to make a few changes really quickly here. So in my, oh, wait, I actually already did that. I have two versions of this project I'm working on, one that I'm using for notes and one that I'm using to, actually make the videos. And I didn't have this in my other version. All right, go me. I'm smarter than I thought, I guess. All right, so then in goal holder here, I'm going to, in my check goals, I'm going to go through child count, check goal, goal type, and then I'm going to add another little function here that I'm going to call all goals met, maybe. Function goals met. And then this is just going to go for I in get child count. So it's going to go over all the children. Let's say if get child I dot goal met. Is that what I called that? Let me check to make sure that that's what I called that. Yep, goal underscore met. So if, let's say if not get child I goal met, so if there's a goal that wasn't met, then we're going to return a false value. So this is just going to return either true or false, telling us whether or not our goals are met. So if we go through every child in the children that this object has, and we find one where the goal wasn't met, then we're going to return false. But if we go through all of them and we don't return yet, then we're going to return true. And I'm going to make another little function here that's going to check for game win. So function check game win. And what this is going to do is we're going to say if goals met, so if all the goals are met, then I'll just print something here. So print U1 exclamation point. Cool. And now that function needs to be called from somewhere. So after I check all my goals, I'm going to check to see if I won the game. So check game win. All right, cool. I'm going to save this, and let's go back to our scene here, and let's try it out. Let's give the game a play. I'll probably fast forward through some of this, so I'll meet you back here on the other side. Okay, so here we are back, 21 out of 22, 1 ice piece left, and there we go. U1 triggered twice because, why did it trigger twice? Oh, because it checked to see if the goals were met twice, that's why. But there we go, we're good. Now, what we want to do is if we win, we want to change the state of the game and move in a U-Win panel. So I've updated the itch.io game link again, and we're going to make a little game panel for this. So let's jump right into that. Okay, so the art that I made for this just has a little U-Win panel and then a little continue button. The U-Win panel has a little darker space on there where we can put our score as we get a little further on, but for now we won't be putting our score in there. We just have the continue button, reload the current scene, because we haven't made a level select yet. So what I want to do is I want to use my game over panel here as kind of my idea for what we're going to do. So I'm going to make a new scene, and my main node in here is going to be a canvas layer. And I'm going to offset this by 576 on X. And then as a child of this, let's see, what did I do here? Yeah, I made a margin container and then a texture rect. So let's do the same thing here. Let's make a margin. I'm not inheriting from the game over panel because I don't want all of the stuff from the game over panel. I'm just going to set my margins to 40. Oops. On each, so 40, 40. If you forgot where this was, if you highlight margin container and then go down to custom constants, the custom constants for the margin container is the margin from each side. So there we go. Now as a child of this, I'm going to make a texture rect. And this is going to have a full rect layout. I set that, I think I set that right. Anyway, so for my texture, I'm going to have it be the U-Win panel. There we go, that looks better. And then as a child of this, I want two things. So I'm going to use a vertical box container. So this is going to be a vertical box container. And then I'll set my margin here. Okay, so what I want to do here is go to my margin container, and I'm going to set my top margin to be, say, 256, which is going to force that U-Win panel down so that your hand would rest more comfortably where the button's going to be. On my VBox container, I'm going to set my top to be, let's do 256 and then 512. Is that? It's not too bad. Let's go a little lower than 256 though. Let's go 384. All right, cool. So that's actually, no, 256 was good because we're going to need the label in here. All right, cool. Now the two children I'm going to add to this are a label for the score and a texture button. So I want texture button, label, texture button. So I'm going to go to my vertical box container, custom constants. I'm going to set my separation to, say, 40 for now. I'll have to play around with that a little bit. My texture button, going to take a look at my textures, set normal to be that continue button. All right, cool. And then for my stretch, I want to keep aspect centered, turn expand on, And then down here in my, is it rect? Yeah, it's rect. I want to set the minimum size to be, say, 256, 192. 192 is too tall. Let's do 128. All right, cool. And now my label here, I'm going to leave that blank for now. And I'm going to go to my size flags, and this is going to vertically expand and fill. There we go. And my texture button on my size flags vertically is going to expand and fill, and then horizontally it's going to go to expand and fill. I think I just want it to be expand though. Nope. Maybe. Did that keep aspect centered? Did that go away? Grr. Why is it not centering it now? Ugh. Alright, sorry for that weird cut. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change my margins on my vertical box container. So I'm going to have it go further down, say 552, and a little bit further down for the top two, say 300. That's not too bad. And then for my left, I'm going to make this 120, which is pretty good. Alright, cool. And let's actually go a little bit further. Let's say 160. That's probably too, yeah, that's too much. 140. I had this all laid out in Affinity, I promise. I just didn't write down what anything was. Okay, so now our label is going to take up that much space, which is, that's not too bad. And our texture button is going to take up that much. Let's actually move everything down just a little bit more. Let's say 320. So our label's there, that's good, and our button's there, that's good. All right, cool. Now, I'm going to rename this to Game Win Screen. I'm going to save this scene in our scenes folder. And then, same thing I did for the Game Over panel, I made a script for this that extended the base menu panel. I'm going to do the same thing for the Game Win screen. So I'm going to go down here to Script, New Script, and I'm going to inherit from, how did that get in there? I'm going to inherit from our script, base menu panel, create. Alright, so the base menu panel script, just to make sure that everybody remembers, has an animation player, and that just plays the slide in and slide out. So my Game Win screen here needs to have an animation player as well. And this animation player needs to also have that slide in and slide out. So I'm going to load an animation, and that animation, what did I call it? So, I saved it somewhere. I know I did. No. Oh, in animation. Good lord. What's wrong with me? Alright, so slide in T-Res. Alright, cool. So, yep, it's named correctly. So this will work just fine. Alright, and my Game Win screen here. There we go. Now, again, like I said, I'm using my Game Over panel as the main template for what I'm doing here. So if we look at how the Game Over panel works, we can actually get rid of this ready function from there. I'm actually even just going to grab all of these. I'm just going to copy. I'm going to go to my Game Win screen. I'm going to paste them here, and I'll change the buttons. I don't need the quit button, so I can get rid of that. And my restart button, that's really going to be our continue button. You're a good girl. Yes, you are. You're a good kitty. And then for the on-grid game over I'm going to delete this, but instead of being game over, it's going to be game win. So, yeah, I'm going to go out of here, go to my texture button, and I'm going to rename this continue button. I think I mentioned before, the case for nodes is typically what's called camel case, and I did it right there too. I have a tendency to not use that. I have a tendency just to use regular case, so I need to keep myself from doing that. So I'm going to go to my continue button node. I'm going to grab the pressed signal and connect that to the game win screen, and this is just going to be the get tree reload scene. So I'm going to cut that and paste it right there, and then I'll get rid of that function that doesn't need to be here for this one, and I'll save this. I'm going to go back to my game window here, and game window, I'm going to add my game win screen. Alright, cool. Alright, now my goal holder, which is where we're checking all the goals to see if they've all been met. Instead of just printing you in, I'm going to emit a signal. And that signal is going to be game 1. And we'll emit signal. Game 1. And this is going to do two different things. So the first thing that this is going to do is I'm going to connect it to the game win screen. So connect to game win screen, and then this is going to trigger the slide in, and then I'll get rid of this little pass here, and then that unnecessary extra function. Alright, cool. Now the other thing game win is going to do, I'm going to connect this to my grid, because I want to make it so that you can't interact with the game after you've won. So this is going to say state equals wait. Alright, cool. Cool. Now let's try this out. Okay, I'm going to fast forward through this, but I'll meet you guys here on the other side. Okay, so when I was supposed to win, I got an invalid function call. So slide in, non-existent function slide in on base. Okay, so I got an error here, and that actually brings up a good point. So I'm going to do an error, like a bug fixing video sometime relatively soon. But one of the things that people brought up is that bombs don't chain very well. And in this case, here's one specific error with the bomb chaining. We'll talk about this more in depth in that later video, but here's the specific error with bomb chaining. So in my find adjacent pieces method, which is in the grid script, I have it set up so that we're going from -1 to 2, which is just finding all the pieces that are around a certain piece. We're checking to see if it's in the grid, a specific piece, column plus I, row plus j, and then I do if column plus I plus row plus j isn't a sinker, and then from there on, I check to see column I and then all pieces I row. That's not right, because that means that I'm calling somewhere else, because I in this case is between -1 and +1. I want this to be row plus I, and then down here I want this to be column plus, okay, so it should be column plus I, and it should be row plus j. Okay, cool. So let me try that again here. Okay, there we go. So now I defeated all 22 of those. I've got my continue button, and right now it just reloads the scene because that's what I have it to. But there we go. We have most of the core game loop there. So now we need to do some bug fixing, and then we're going to need to talk about, let's see, what comes next. I think the level select might be pretty soon in the future. And then we'll talk about boosters and, I guess pause menu. I guess I have that pretty soon. So, yeah. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. You can follow me on Discord, where if you can't talk to me, there's usually somebody there who's at least as knowledgeable as I am, if not way more knowledgeable. So thank you very much, everybody, and I hope everybody out there has themselves a wonderful day. If you enjoyed this video, consider giving a like, subscribing to the channel, or telling a friend who might be interested. Also, please consider following me on Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you can earn access to tangible rewards, like early access to videos, backer-only videos and series, polls for future topics, streams, and even individual tutoring sessions. You can find a link to that in the description. And as always, have yourselves a wonderful day.